What's up, everybody? So this is an episode, interview episode with Ancient Death. So Death Metal Podcast coming live on YouTube tonight. We're going to do two streams, one that's dedicated just towards the Ancient Death interview, and then another one that'll be dedicated more towards the music, some exclusives, and all that stuff. So hopefully everybody's having a good Saturday night, either hot or cold. I don't know where you're at. Again, this is not going to be like a music episode related death metal podcast. This is going to be more an interview. We're going to talk on here about Ancient Death, their history, and then we're going to have a couple members of the band on, and then we're going to have Rotter Records on, and then myself. And this would probably be the first interview of the band on Necroharmonic out of 70 death metal podcast interviews. So obviously I never made this channel to just promote Necroharmonic, my label, or Ancient Deaths on Necroharmonic. But I made this show and death metal podcast to promote the scene. So basically, I didn't think that I should be on here just doing interviews and just showing just my band, my bands or Rotter bands or whatever, or my friends' bands only. I figured this would be a complete thing just to prop up the entire death metal scene, not like a community. So that way, other people like me, fans, could enjoy and talk to each other, which they do in the chat and everything. So yeah, what's up, Kyle P? What's up, guys? Yeah, I think Ken's going live tonight too at the same time, but too bad. So Death Metal Podcast coming live tonight with an Ancient Death interview. We got everybody in the back room right now, and then I want to bring those guys on screen just to bring you up to speed. This is one year anniversary of Ancient Death's release, which they had recorded a little previous to that. But this will be the 1 year. Today is a 1 year anniversary since their stuff was released, which is kind of cool. We didn't really plan it like that. I just said, you know what? Let's do this. What's up, Evan Williams, Teddy? Cannot miss both shows. Yeah, we're going to have a second show after this too. And then we're gonna play an exclusive from a band that Ancient Death is going to be doing a split with. So basically, I see somebody's cat is in the stream. So once he sits down, we're gonna come live on Death Metal Podcast on this Saturday night. All right, guys. So here we go. So we got Jerry from Ancient Death, Oscar, Rotter Records, and Derek.
Can everybody hear me?
How's it going, guys?
What's up, man?
Hey.
What's going on, Jerry?
Hope my air conditioner's not
Derek.
too loud.
Yeah.
It's hot out here.
My undergang shirt.
It's hot over here, too.
Yeah, man. It's hot everywhere, right?
Yeah, in a small room, so hopefully it's not disrupting.
Yeah, I forgot to get my drink, Jerry.
Yeah, I know, right? Gotta get the waters, man.
So anyway, tonight, this is an episode, like I said, this is this is the first death metal podcast, I think, besides maybe the Disma one or some other one that we actually are interviewing a band that's on Necroharmonic. Because remember, pretty much I never put any Necroharmonic bands on here, right? It's just straight up scene support death metal stuff only, I never tried to just flex on here.
Yeah,
saying what's up. One. Hey, Jerry and Derek.
Hey, Rich. Is that Rich?
Proxy Maniac in the house. What's up, brother? Thank you for supporting. It's 99 degrees here at 8 at night in Louisiana. God damn.
Oh, it ain't that hot here.
yeah, not that hot here either. I live where it snows, basically. So
I'm in Miami, so it was a hot one.
Yo, you look down, Oscar.
It's hot right now, bro. And I'm in my living room, bro.
Heated.
Good to see you.
It's gonna be a heated interview.
Likewise,
too.
Man.
So I didn't come with any questions or anything, but basically we're just gonna wing it,
Awesome. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, man. So basically, what we're doing tonight too is we're gonna do two streams. This is gonna be the Ancient Death one and the interview for you guys, and then the other at 11 p.m. We'll try to take this right up to around 11. And then I'll send you guys new link streams, and then we're gonna do a separated stream where we're gonna play music, basically.
Right on.
And then the band that we're gonna make a little announcement on here about that split. And then the band that is doing the split, they sent the exclusive video for Death Metal Podcast, dude.
Yeah,
they recorded
a little
it.
jam session.
Yeah, a jam session, and it's pretty sick, dude.
Awesome.
I mean, I couldn't get it to they oriented it a little weird, so I had to adjust it in Premiere, so I couldn't get it to be full screen.
Yeah,
but it was definitely sick. What's going on, everybody? Thank you, man. What's up, Carl? How's it going, man? Good seeing you last night. Me and Carl and Francisco, we were live streaming last night too, and
yeah, you guys are warriors, man. It's great, dude.
Yeah, he kept playing like videos, and he kept getting like all these copyright strikes, and like the stream would just go dead, go dead.
Is that the one I promoted today, Roy?
Yes. Well, no, that was his show you promoted today.
It was Carl's show that got all the copyright shit?
No, it was Francisco's.
Oh, wow.
But he was playing like Merciful Fate, and he was playing he played SOD, so he kind of was stepping over the boundary lines of like what YouTube will allow you to play.
Yeah, it was like with that jukebox thing. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that pop up. Yeah, I was working or doing something.
He wanted to do an episode that was dedicated towards first songs on albums. Because the first song on an album, it's usually like the one you kind of know the most, right?
Yeah, of course.
So here we are tonight with guys from Ancient Death, 2 members, Derek, who plays drums in Ancient Death, and Jerry, who plays guitar and is the principal songwriter from Ancient Death.
That's correct.
So Jerry, get into the formation or the genesis of Ancient Death. I mean, you're from Massachusetts, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So you, as a young lad, I'm assuming early guitar player, early instrumental guy.
Yeah, I picked up guitar probably when I was around like 4 or so. I was really, really young, and my parents are huge music heads, and my parents exposed me to Pink Floyd when I was really little, and my dad had a VHS copy of Pink Floyd Live at Pompeii. And that was like some of my first memories is like seeing that just opening scene of the whole amphitheater and going in and then just hearing echoes. And and I just the way like David Gilmour was playing the guitar, like I remember being like a little kid and just being like, oh my God, like I want to do that. And also it was like weird being that young, like that it was weird that like that music already made me feel something,
Yeah. Especially because it was Pompeii too, because it's a little different than being like a wall or something.
Yeah. So yeah, I picked up the guitar really quickly. My dad had been playing when I was a little kid and everything, and so I would always like take his guitars and just just hit them and whatever else. And but yeah, so then it just started developing from there, and I was just a self-taught guitarist, and I would listen to records and try and play along with it, and I'd always write my own parts over it and everything. So pretty young player. But
what about you, Derek? Where were you at with coming in on music?
Oh shit!
You weren't a drummer, but you played drums on this. So
well, no, not necessarily. I kind of learned everything at the same time. So it was kind of like similar to Jerry, but I had an older brother that was 9 years. Well, he's still alive.
Right.
But I had a brother that's 9 years apart from me, and all my cousins and my brother and his friends and my aunt and uncle, they were all kind of close generally in the 20 years,
Right.
9 years apart, 3 years apart. And I saw the notebooks with the Black Sabbath cross. I heard Led Zeppelin. I heard Sabbath. I heard Dokken, Motley Crue, Judas Priest. I heard everything.
Right.
As long as I could remember. I mean, like when I was fucking an infant toddler in a crib, there was Ace Frehley posters, Gene Simmons cutouts in my room that my brother shared with me. So I'd have nightmares like this dude with a tongue and fucking, like.
Did you have that Kiss poster with the four faces, Derek?
Well, there's a lot Kiss.
I had that one.
Was like the first thing I ever seen.
Yeah, they have the posters inside the records, if you got
the cutouts from the magazines and shit would go on the wall. So I mean, I've always been exposed to like, heavier
metal
music. But then I would, my cousin, my uncle had a drum set and he sounded like John Bonham, Led Zeppelin. He'd play all the beats just like Led Zeppelin. So my father was really like, he was a musician too. He played in bands in the 60s and 70s. So he was very supportive of music with me. And, I started getting into the heavy stuff, like right on course, like as I'd say around 87, 80, end of 86, 87. I was in elementary school. I started discovering some Iron Maiden, a little bit of, and I mean, I was really young. I'm talking like fifth grade. There was guys in sixth grade that had the back patches actually in elementary school, had back patches, Eddie back patches.
Yeah.
So I already was like, what is that? And my cousins, they were like, oh, they were already into it. Like they were already.
They were able to pass some of the records down to you and be like, here's an Iron Maiden
record.
Well,
there wasn't really a lot of records going around, more tapes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but what I would do is my father would, buy instruments because he was kind of well off at the time. He was a carpenter and had been making some money, and he bought me some instruments. And I'm like, what the fuck do I do with this? And try to make a long story short, like, my fingers, I'm like a short guy. Everyone who knows me knows I'm like a Danzig looking Henry Rollins.
Danzig.
I might look cool here, but I'm a short dude, which is cool. And so my fingers were short when I was really young. Like they're still kind of short now, but not like then. And I wanted to play guitar. Like my thing was like, whoa, I heard the Eddie Van Halen solos and some Dokken. I was really into the first Motley Crue, like the first two. It was really big, like Matt. And so my dad was like, well, I'm going to take you for some guitar lessons, right?
Right.
So he takes me to the local, like, place to go. And the guy's like, looks at me and he's like, well, listen, your hands aren't developed. This is like a crock of shit. But, like, your hands aren't developed enough for guitar. So what I recommend is that you learn how to play accordion first.
Accordion.
Then, this is like 1985, 1986, around like Back to the Future was on and big. So in the movies. So fucking, I was like, I really wanted to learn guitar. So I was like, I don't care. I'll do whatever it takes to learn how to play guitar because that's what I really wanted.
Right.
So sorry, Jerry, I'm going into fucking everything.
No, you're good.
But so
accordion.
I ended up taking accordion lessons, dude. And I learned songs and read notes and music sheets and learned math music from staff reading. I don't know. I mean, I know it now later in life, but I didn't remember any of that. It didn't have any weight into how I learned how to play at all.
Right.
But
that's interesting, though. Like, you stepped into the accordion, and he taught you, like, the music of the accordion, which taught you notes, which kind of eventually
yes and no.
Reciprocated a little.
I don't think very much. I think what that did for me, it just showed a little bit of discipline.
Right.
So what I really learned is after I got home from school, I had a little fucking boombox. I put 94 HJY, the local rock station. And every time they played a song, I would press record on the tape cassette of the songs that were cool, like the Judas Priest, the Van Halen. Van Halen was like the big thing. And I would go back and press rewind and play until I learned exactly how to do it.
On accordion or on guitar?
On guitar. And then my dad's buddy donated a drum set for me to borrow for a while in this old basement with like asbestos and shit. So fucking, I was learning how to play drums like just caveman style. Like, all right, just keep listening to the songs. Garage Days was a big tape that really got me into learning how to play drums heavy. And when I was at that age, I mean, I was 11, 12. so I just kept listening to all those fast beats all the time, a lot of Lars shit,
Right.
and just did it until I knew how to do it. And that's how
Cool,
I,
man.
you know.
Yeah,
So-
and when I met you were a bass player, though.
Yeah, well, I'm taking shit hostage. It's thanks to Red Bull. But like,
Freaking Red Bull.
what really happened is my dad was a bass player,
Okay.
so kind of looked up to him in
Multi-instrumentalist.
that regard. Like, so I bought he bought me a student model bass, like the little junior basses, and that's when I started meeting all the death metal shit. That's what like the kids,
Okay.
like Skinny Ray and that crew. So I wanted to be in a band really bad doing that, because that's where Sodom, Creator, Death, Morbid Angel, Paradise Lost, Terrorizer, that's where that started hitting right around then. 1988, 1989, Morbid Angel, 1990, 1989 for me. That's when I discovered it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, grant you, I'm 13. So if anyone wants to talk cult, like, you know.
Yeah. You were
I'm not
into
a
it way
fucking cult
earlier.
guy at that age.
You were the youngest cat of the crews, and
Yeah,
Jerry, like you, obviously are younger than us. You know what I mean? You're the youngest of all of us here. So, like, were you like, you know, in high school? Was there other like metalheads and guys you consorted with, and you listened to certain things?
Yeah, actually, like I got into death metal like really, really young. Also, I mean, mine's a little different of an experience just because
Obviously, age-wise,
or whatever. But they used to have like those old Comcast metal stations, and Evil Dead from Death came on, and I was hanging out with a couple friends, and I think it was in like 8th grade, maybe 7th, 8th grade, somewhere around there, and I was like. And I had already listened to like Slayer and Pantera because of my, you know, my folks and everything. They were already into like that heavier stuff. So the first time I heard that, I was like, oh my God, that vocal style.
right?
And I was like 11 or 12, I think, when I got into that. So I like
Chuck's vocal style.
What was that?
Chuck's vocal style, or
oh yeah,
maybe?
all. And so so I, you know, discovered Death, and that led me down the rabbit hole of just all the other bands, you know, and so it was weird because a lot of kids my age were definitely not into that as much. And the next town over for me actually is where like my whole friend group was. It was like the two rival towns, but I met a bunch of kids who are the same age as me who all happen to love death metal, like Ray, who obviously plays for Ancient Death and everything, right. And so like, you know, I met him and some other friends and whatnot, and so we had like a little death metal crew as like little 12-year-old kids, you know.
That's cool.
So it was like really special, but it's weird because a lot of other friends of mine that are like, you know, in the scene are like, oh, I didn't get into metal until I was a little older or whatnot, and it's interesting to see how different it is for people depending on like, you know, their situations, like, you know, their parents.
Everyone's a little different.
Whatever, you know.
It was somebody that was commenting on your Pink Floyd here. You all have some Pink Floyd in your songs. One of the first things I picked out about your music.
Absolutely.
Just to touch base on that real quick. On the Pink Floyd. If you listen to like the Pink Floyd album that comes to my mind right now, Dark Side of the Moon, right? You know how every song it sets up on the other
oh
song?
Yeah, like flows. Yeah,
I hear it in Sacred Vessel, and you hear it a lot in Isolation.
Yeah,
it's got that Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon vibe to it.
Yeah,
that's what I hear.
It's funny because
I hear that Pink Floyd influence even on the new songs, the clips that I've been hearing.
Yeah.
Recently I saw one and I was like, wow, this sounds like Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Something that's like really interesting to me is usually when I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, what bands inspire you? It's usually like they mean like, oh, like what do you write your riffs like this because of this band? And for me, like I've never really written music to try and copy, you know, what bands are riffing. It's more of like that atmosphere. So like if you watch Pink Floyd live at Pompeii, there's a certain atmosphere that's there, and it's like you feel hopeful, you feel
Yeah, it's very quiet actually in a weird way. It starts very quiet and it kind of just builds up.
Yeah, and I just wanted to incorporate that into heavier music because I like the heavier stuff. Like I like really like just like passionate stuff, and so it's like. But for me, I like to have like more of these textures and create certain atmospheres and moods that are similar to those bands, but it's more just like how can I expand on this emotion that I also feel, without playing.
We're a strange thing to blend those two bands, like say blend Death and Pink Floyd.
Yeah. Well, like I think that like it's
but I also hear disembowelment too.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a ton of like influences for sure. Like for me, like I just like catchy music. I love like pop music, like love it. Madonna, Britney Spears, stuff that's catchy and you want to like sing along.
Yeah. What about Lush? Wants to know, Ian.
Yeah.
What about Lush?
Is very important.
Who's Pink Floyd?
I just want to like interject though that like these things, like it's death metal, and you'd be surprised on how many bands have different influences that you wouldn't think have them.
Oh yeah.
So, but we know what authenticity is, and we know how to separate that in the songwriting process and the style. So that's important to know too. Like we're just creative outlets. Like we know metal, and we know how our metal is supposed to sound. So we keep it authentic. Right. We keep it true to what the genre is. But then those influences what kind of gives it some originality. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Like we're not throwing a DJ who's scratching fucking records in our music. You know what I mean? Like
no. It definitely
and we know
it's definitely something unique.
Yes.
Yeah. You guys.
It's definitely something unique.
When myself, I think you could probably speak to this. Like, remember we had a small conversation, and like we wanted to get into the music business a little bit with me, so I was giving him some hints, so I do this or we do that. And he's I want to get, and we're gonna work on old stuff from Sony, and basically he's like, you should put out like a new band or.
Uh-oh.
Did you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you, Oscar. Roy, looks like he's
Roy, I think Roy was freezing up.
Yeah, he might have to log back in or something. Who knows?
But on that Pink Floyd, I hear it a lot, man. I like it, man. On the new clips that I'm hearing. When are we gonna hear some new songs?
Oh yeah.
Soon. You want to answer, Jerry? You want me to answer?
Because I hear.
Go ahead, man.
Well, I'm thinking like maybe we could switch off question to question just so it's easier to not like talk, not have to talk over each other as much, because I don't want to talk over my homeboys. I
suck at this because I want to say a lot all
right, so
then we go to something else and then I'm like, wait,
so
let me go back to the Pink Floyd thing.
Okay, so you're asking about new music? Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the clips, on that you guys have released, and I hear it, man, and I like what I hear.
Very cool. Well, I'll have Jerry say some stuff too, of course. But we're in the process of recording a self-released. Well, you guys will be obviously releasing it, but we'll be recording it ourselves. It's kind of like we never really did a demo. It just. The way things happened were very cool.
Very quick.
Yeah, very fast. So we kind of missed out on that. So instead of, just skipping that whole process, we're going to release 3 songs on a demo tape. It's just going to be 3 songs just to kind of give you an idea of, what's coming next for the band.
The direction of the next chapter of Ancient Death?
Yeah. And there's no like super surprises. It's still the same brutality and eeriness and atmosphere of Sacred Vessel. It's just, we've definitely leveled up on our chemistry and our songwriting together as a unit. Because I think those songs on Sacred Vessel Jerry had those done for a good amount of time, and we presented them to the members, which got to me last, So Ray and Jasmine already had those songs very well put together, and I stepped in at the end to kind of finish the drums, you know? Yeah. So this time it's like all of us together working through the material. So it's, you know, showing some progression for us. So, and then,
well, like I said, what I've heard of the little that I've heard, you know, on Instagram and whatnot, and what you've sent, you know, obviously what we sent to each other through emails is, I can't wait for everybody else to hear it. You know,
Thank you.
Definitely crushing. It's crushing, man.
Yeah. What do you want to say about that?
What's that?
I know Jerry might want to say a few things about that too.
Yeah. The new songs it's cool. I feel like, you know, to expand on what Derek was saying, like before, you know, I had written basically these ideas before for Sacred Vessel, and, you know, everyone kind of had the parts down for a while. Like we had been rehearsing, and we went through a few drummers and all the stuff. And then so when we finally got it done, you know, got together with Derek, it was like, boom, there it is. Whereas now these new songs are things that we're, you know, in the moment working on, you know, all together, all four of us. So it's not like, you know, and
there's more chemistry now, I would imagine.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And it's like
kind of what you were saying, Derek, you know, there's just it's a lot easier, I guess, to come up with whatever concept you guys are thinking of and put it together and as
absolutely. I feel like you get to see more of a piece of all four of us too now, where it really, I mean, Sacred Vessel does it too, of course. I think there's a lot there, but it's really cool to see the different textures all of us bring into the music, you know, and it's like, if, you know, minus like, let's say if like I was just only controlling it, you know, then it's like, it's only one vision, but having four of us there, it really lets the songs grow and breathe. And sometimes there's something I might not like that someone else likes, and you have to kind of remove yourself from that and allow yourself to be for what's best for the music. And I feel like these songs definitely uphold that value for sure.
Yeah. On one of the clips, Derek, you were going off on the drums, bro.
Well, I mean, you know, I mean, the way I see it, like, you know, I'm 47, which isn't that old, but it's not young either.
I'm 52, bro.
You know, so, you know, like, I just try to, like, take care of my health, like, stay in shape the best I can so I can be a better drummer, like, and be able to keep up with the things that I, you know, learned. And so, I mean, it's great because it's getting easier for me, which is kind of weird. Like, it was a lot harder for me to play like 8 years ago. Like, and it seems like now I'm like starting to really just, you know, I don't have to practice like I used to when in my 20s, you know, or my teens. But, you know, it's just like staying in good shape and taking care of myself is going to keep the drum solid, because I don't use triggers of fucking any metronome or any, you know, we don't want to rely on that. We want it to be primal, because that's what old school death metal is, you know?
Right. So,
you know, I want to try to do that for the rest of my life, as long as I have, you know, appendages, you know what I'm saying, at work.
Yeah. No, like I said, one of the clips you were going off on the drums, man.
Right on, dude. That's cool.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a big technical guy, you know, so it's just primal and old style, you know?
There he is.
There he's back.
Sorry about that.
No
I don't know. The internet went out for me.
Technical difficulties.
But yeah, sorry. I heard you guys talking about the new material a little bit.
Yeah. We were talking about how I seen the clips that we sent, obviously, to each other through emails. But I told him, like, it sounds crushing, man, and can't wait to hear a song.
Yeah.
It's coming soon. We've been rehearsing it weekly, and I was gone for a little while on tour, so coming back now, we've just been like in ancient death mode, and we had the songs done before I left, but now we're like, okay, let's really get these going. And so they're sounding insane. But,
you know, obviously I circle back to ancient death for a second. I just want to say, like, you went on tour with Atheist, which were an influence to you. Like, a couple of my friends, including the guitar player from Immolation, he had mentioned to me offhand, he said, you know, man, he goes, you really see the spirit of a younger dude who loved fucking Atheist to play in the band, because he is showing he's showing and proving. You know what I mean?
You killed it.
Oh yeah.
Like, can you talk to that a little bit, bro? Because like there was something
absolutely.
going on there that I have not seen energy wise in a long time, Jerry. I have to say, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, for me, like music is such a sharing experience, you know. And the first time I heard Atheist, I was probably like 12. It was so young. It was in the early stages of me getting into death metal, and I wasn't as much into the really, really brutal stuff. Like I like some I do like brutal things, but like Autopsy or that kind of brutal. But I liked more technical kind of stuff. Not like tech death bands necessarily, but bands that like were more progressive, like Cynic and Gorguts and that kind of thing. And and when I heard Atheist, it was like, whoa, I can hear what this guy is saying, but he's also growling. And then the lyrics were just so introspective, and just for me, that was like a huge thing. I was like, oh my God, like these lyrics are insane.
What was your first Atheist uptake? Like, did you just a blind buy, a friend recommendation?
Honestly, it was probably from searching on YouTube. I used to see all the, like before ads and stuff, I would see all the, album covers on the side, and you just click on it and pick whatever album cover looked cool. And I thought that looked fucking sick. It was like, this band's name is Atheist, and there's this planet, like, I listened to Unquestionable Presence first, and as soon as I heard the boom, boom, I was like, what the fuck? Like, this music's insane. So I was like a huge fan. Like, my mom used to buy me their t-shirts and shit. I still have those shirts from when I was 14.
That's great.
And
great, man.
And so I was already playing, guitar like crazy then. I was getting into a lot of stuff, and Ray and I were discovering all these bands together. And so we were trying to just like learn as much as we could about this whole new, side of the metal world that I didn't know existed, because it, like, for me, it was like Slayer and Priest and Maiden, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then it's just like, oh, here's this whole other thing.
There was like several little like subgenres. It's like you had like a straight up death metal one. Then you had Suffocation, you won. Mm-hmm. Then you had like your Nocturnuses and your Atheists.
Yeah.
And then you had like your Godflesh, which is completely different. And then you had like, so it's like weird.
So many,
then you had your gore grindy kind of phlegms, and like you're more like, so it's like so many different little paths somebody could take.
Oh yeah, and it's really cool to see how different people will, it's like, for me, I just happened to, just discover Death and Cynic and Atheist, like those kind of bands, so that's just kind of the way my life has always gone towards.
There's something I could say to Atheists too, in general, that like Metal Forces put out a compilation back in like 1988, 89. It was called Raging Death. Mm-hmm. And then it had Atheist on it, but they were called Ravage.
Oh yeah.
And then it had Obituary on it when they were called Executioner. Mm-hmm. And that comp actually had kind of like a big ripple effect across like the metal underground back in like 89, 90. Because, they had magazines, like they had specific magazines, say like from the early to mid 80s to like late 80s.
Yeah,
they would mix in like thrash and metal bands with like poser music bands, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like Cream and this and that. Then slowly but surely they started to push more onto like all metal bands. So you might have a magazine that had like all Slayer, Megadeth, Metallica. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But then that wasn't enough for us as metalheads. So we would branch out and go to Metal Forces and Kerrang.
Mm-hmm.
So that they had like obscure bands in there that we had never heard of, like Acid Rain, and you might see Atheist in there before you would see it in a US mag,
Yeah,
I remember seeing Creator on Kerrang.
Midas Touch and all that era, but it's funny, like, well, it makes me think about the death metal comp, and there's no death metal bands on it. It's like Halloween and like Roy's international bands or whatever, but it was called death metal. So things were developing so fast, and
Omen, damn,
very open-ended time.
Yeah, there would always be like some of those comps. They like half the bands were good, and then there'd be like Omen or some other bands. But then you'd be like,
Savage Steel.
I'll give them a little touch, you know.
Yeah, there was some rough listens too, man.
Well, something that I think is kind of really cool, and something I think about a little bit is because I happen to be a little younger. I wasn't around, obviously, for the whole tape trading scene, like when that music was coming out either, or any of that. Like for me, it was like it always just existed, basically. So it's like I kind of had all of that already.
The uptake was a little easier for you, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, like I didn't have like. Part of me like wishes I got to experience some of that. You know, it would have been cool to be like, hey, I'm gonna, send some money out to this random address and hopefully get a tape back or something.
It's all relative, man.
It could still happen, basically. Yeah. It still happens. Just so you know, like.
So so it's like weird because like Ray and I specifically talk about it a lot, but we're always like, wow, all this music already existed basically our whole lifetime. That we love, and
I think it's cool that younger people, the way they uptake death metal, because they have so many more choices. Actually, you know what I mean? They have more choices musically because, like, after the '80s and '90s
now too, like people
after the '80s, '90s MTV thing exploded. They kind of ran out of bands, so then all of a sudden, everyone just like buckshot scattered towards bands.
Yeah.
And then like a lot of bands blew up all of a sudden. So that's where you see your Nirvanas and all this and that. So like people could have easily went down those paths, but I noticed there was a lot of people that were really seeking, like younger people, I should say, that were seeking like heavier stuff. You know what I mean? They were getting into like creator albums that we listened to when we were young. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was completely bugged out to me to be like, wow, they recognize that Pleasure to Kill is like important,
Well, the thing is, Roy, and it's like it doesn't really like that's just the aesthetic when we were at that age. But we were lucky because it was all.
What's up, Andy Jones?
What's up, Andy? We were all like that music was developing, and we just happened to be involved, and we were just lucky to be there, but. I think nowadays, like kids are into it just as much. I
think so too.
They have the same enthusiasm and different like.
I love it.
There's like different types of creativity involved in that. I think that's why we click so well because the enthusiasm and like appreciation for the music is just as deep.
And you know what? I could say something too to like people talk about like that gatekeeper thing. That was even happening to us when we were coming up through listening to music because we would be on SoulSeek trying to get demos and there would be people blocking us and shit. We were like, damn, they're trying to keep that shit off. Like, damn, I was right in the middle of downloading and I got 1.5 songs. And then someone would see it and they would block you in the middle and you're like, why, dude? I am a fan, bro. You know what I mean? I can't have that. It was very confusing. So like there was even gatekeeping years ago. You know what I mean? So like that's always I hear people talking about gatekeeping, they're like, oh, this music or these younger dudes and these bands, I'm just like, dude, this is all metal.
It was a little different, but yeah, well, in my neck of the woods anyway, but maybe not so much in the sense of like, this sucks. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't really hear that, like, oh, this record, they're weak. Like, no, you didn't hear that. After a while, once things started changing, people, I could definitely say that we did that.
We did it, yeah.
I did that. Like, there's things that I like now that I could not stand.
I used to be like Pantera. They suck, dude. No way.
Oh, absolutely. It got me out of metal for a little while. Like I still like Autopsy and Death and Terrorizer and Pale Nazarene, the stuff that I always listen to the same music. Right. But like newer stuff, it wasn't right, So
no, I mean those bands weren't right to me. They're like Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and all that stuff. I mean, I love those bands now. But the thing is, when they were coming out, I was like, "This shit sucks."
Yeah, see, I grew up with all that. Thing. I loved all that stuff growing up, just because it's like
that's cool.
My parents were so like into the metal stuff, but also into like all this other stuff, And it's like I grew up with like Slayer and Pantera and all that stuff, and still love that
or the
music
phone
too,
rings
you know. But
and you knocked off AOL 4 hours downloading a 30-second clip.
Well, that's
boy.
Yeah, that
that's
was
an amazing
the days,
screen
man.
name there, Stink Floyd.
All right, hold
Floyd.
on. Sepultura, Morbid Visions.
Morbid
Got
Visions.
me into
Oh, yeah.
death metal.
Me too.
Classic.
It was
Yeah.
Beneath the Remains first, but then a week or two later, I got Schizophrenia and Morbid Visions. So
I felt like that was a lot of people's stories, especially
Yeah.
even in New York area. A
Well,
lot
that
of
was the
people got into them on Beneath the Remains,
Yeah.
and
That
then
was the
all of a
first
sudden,
show.
like, we looked for those other records.
Yeah, that was the first show I ever seen in a club, like real deal. That was the first show,
Right.
Beneath the Remains tour. That was the first
With
one.
Obituary?
Yep.
It's
I saw
Sadist, though.
Obituary.
Yeah, I went to that.
I got my nose busted at it. The first time jumping into a crowd pit or whatever. Got my nose busted.
Let me
It
guess.
didn't break.
During
It didn't
Obituary?
break, but it looked like it, you know?
Let me guess, though. During Obituary happened? Because that's when
No,
they
it was
had
during
brutalist
Sepultura.
clips.
Yeah, it was during
Oh, wow.
Sepultura. Yeah. Because I was
Yeah.
standing in the front for Obituary. So there was no, like, the pit was in the middle, you know?
Right.
Because it was a big pit, like violent, don't fuck around, you're going to get fucked with pit.
Right.
Because all the skinheads and all the thrashers and hardcore kids all went to the same shows.
Yeah.
But then when Sepultura came on, I was like, I'm going to do this, you know? Because I had just seen the Nuclear Assault tour like a few weeks before that. So I was like getting into, you know, like really getting into the heavy shit.
We moved into those gigs too with like there was no camaraderie with like other fans. Like everybody was like their own armies, right? When you went with your friends. So there'd be like skinheads, there'd be like some weird thrashers over there, there'd be some normal people. And everyone seemed like they were your enemy when you went to those shows because you were like, I don't know.
Everybody was in their own little group.
Yeah, and it would like once like the pits erupted, then it was kind of like the war was on, you know what I mean? Like, but then in the end too, you know, sometimes like you would meet that other dude and you and him would be moshing together. You didn't even fucking know him and shit. And then like you would like make friends with him and be talking with him later. And not at the bar. Like no one was drinking. Like everyone was completely invested just in the show, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know growing up, I did not let the bar consume me, even as at 21, 25, 30, at any time. Because those are the times when it's the worst, obviously, even if you're 18 getting in drinking. So, like, you can get consumed with the bar, but, like, I would get consumed with the show instead. You know what I mean? Because I was like, this is more fun than sitting at a fucking stool. You know what I mean? I don't know. It was like
it's youth, too. It's
exciting.
like youth, you know, like the excitement of being young, you know?
Yeah.
That had a lot to do with me, and it was so new. And when it hit you, like, everyone's got that special time, that special record that hit them or that show where they seen something that blew them away because it was so fresh. And that'll always carry weight, you know? Like, I saw a fucking Grave play in front of my face, 2 feet away from my face.
Right.
And Providence, that blew me away. This, like, crazy dude with hair, and he had a hat on with glasses. It was like Jurgen from Grave. You look, and he had that funny accent. And then they start playing, and you're like, what the fuck, you know? Like,
yeah,
cool,
they had the same scenario with Carcass on the Symphony of Sickness tour. They had played at G. Willikers. And like I had seen them the night before, and they were on a big stage in Lemoore. But then the next night I got to see them, and I was standing like literally like 2 feet from Bill Steer, and I'm like, this is fucking sick, dude.
Yeah.
Like I worship that album, dude. Symphonies of Sickness. So to be standing like 2 feet away from the guitar player while he's like murdering that album.
Was that a Lemoore's?
That was at G. Willikers.
I saw that.
I went to see him at Lemoore the night before, though. So like they were up on the stage, so they looked like rock stars. But the thing is, Death played that show, right? And the big takeaway from that show was Death played that show because we were so interested in Carcass that Death playing wasn't even like as cared about. Let's say it almost felt like Death came up and played their shows in New York, kind of got their love a little bit. So then when Carcass hit the U.S., they played a tour with Death, and Carcass was playing before Death. So like when Carcass played, everybody was completely like annihilated by Carcass. And then they were like, I had to think, I had to be like, oh, yo, Death played that show too. That's weird that I kind of like didn't care as much.
Yep. Well, that music was hitting heavier by the month. So Carcass was the heaviest.
Was that spiritual healing?
No, it wasn't even. It was still leprosy.
Still leprosy.
Yeah.
Still.
Leprosy?
And
yeah, I mean, by the end of the show, I was into it. I was like, it was leprosy, So
that was pestilence, and then the spiritual healing tour was devastation.
Right.
So they did the end of leprosy that year was 89, and then they came back in 90 with spiritual healing with the
Somebody's
devastation.
hitting it right here. There was no cell phones back then, so there was no taking video. You just had to listen, and that's another thing. Like you couldn't look at your phone. You couldn't talk to people. You couldn't text. You weren't videotaping.
Just watch the band.
If you were lucky, you brought a disposable camera, right? I mean, there was one thing that I used to show up to shows with. I would show up to shows with a tape recorder and batteries and blank tapes. And I would friggin' tape the show so I could listen to it after the show.
Yeah.
Again.
That's smart. I never thought
I mean,
of that.
if the bouncers let you in with it, so occasionally they frisked you and they're like, you can't bring this in here.
Yeah.
And yeah, we would go to sometimes we would have to go to the car and it would be dangerous. So there'd be so many elements of danger in the whole going to shows. There was two moments for me that were very pivotal. It was the one of going to a local show, and then there was the one of going to another state to go to a show. And I was like, whoa, holy fuck, there's even Rhode Island would be a good example. I remember the first time I went to Rhode Island with Incantation.
I remember.
I was like, dude, there's a whole other scene up here, dude. I can't fucking believe how cool.
That's where I met you, bro. That's where I met you.
I know. And I'm like, I can't believe how cool the fucking people are from here and how much alike they are, like us from Jersey. So it was like Rhode Island people and New Jersey people were very asimilar in a weird way.
Yeah. That's cool.
So yeah, it was
we had really good bands.
We had like us, a whole scene up here of people too, and weirdos too. You guys had your we had weirdos, and so did you. You had your Dean Scums and your fucking Seth Putnams and shit.
Rest in peace, by the way. Man.
Yeah, rest in peace. But you know what I mean? You had your maniacs, and you had your crazies, and you had your. Jim Fleet had his head on his shoulders back then.
Yeah.
But, he was standing up the scene. I mean, is there any you're from Mass, Jerry? So would that thing be before you? Kind of the whole glam metal scenes thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, long before.
Yeah. You would your parents pass down messages to you to be like, hey, I went to this festival one time. It was called the Fleet's Fest of Freaks,
that was very underground at that time,
Yeah, it was.
It was very, very underground.
There was not many people there. There was 100 people there, maybe, and that would be with the bands.
Yeah. Imagine seeing Entombed with LG back from the band after, they did the second album. It was his first tour back, and there's 50 people in the room.
Yeah. Oh, I saw Entombed with
how it was.
10 people, actually.
There was 50, 40 people for that.
Yeah.
I was
we saw Entombed at Studio One, though, Roy. And it was packed, wasn't it?
Yeah, at Studio One, it was packed. But then I saw them at the Pipeline, and there was Pipeline was kind of like a punk club, kind of. It was across the street from Studio. And there wasn't many people there at all, man. There was 15 people there, maybe. It was a cool show. It was still brutal show.
Oh yeah, it had to become classic, and now it is what it is now.
Yeah, and I wonder if a generation of metalers got into later Pink. I would say how a lot of death metal bands changed from death metal to death and roll. I wonder if there's a whole genre of kids that got into the later Zizma and the later Disgrace and
probably more in Europe than here, but it's
probably more in Europe. You're right about that because they did get more into the whole power metal scene way more in Europe.
It's kind of funny though, really the record market, all the U.S. pressings, they all ended up in Europe. If you notice now, it's Jerry, you'll know this. You look on Discogs and every great record's in Europe. because all the Europeans bought all the US shit in the 90s, and it just all moved to.
No, you're
Europe,
right about that, because most of the stuff I look for is also in the European market.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. You mentioned that, Derek.
Absolutely.
You guys big collectors? I know you are, Derek. What about you, Jerry?
Me? Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. You guys got it. Yeah, like you're on Discogs searching for that one fucking like, okay, oh damn, I need this particular CD with these extra 4-song fucking bonus tracks, you know?
Not so much lately for me, but maybe
everything's pretty expensive right now, and I feel like I got kind of like the essential stuff I really want. There's certain bands I'll buy like every version of something for, but those are only a few select bands. But,
I did one. I felt like during the pandemic, we were, a lot of people were home, so I got more into like the Bandcamp thing then. So then I figured, you know what, I can support the bands directly, and they're manufacturing their stuff, selling it from home. You know what I mean?
To be honest, I buy more vinyl from people I know now than anything else.
Yeah.
I think the prices are better because your friends, but also like you're not going to get like the record that's listed. You're going to get what's just being sold to you, and like just like more of the underground, like it. Guys like John Brave and Francisco, and like we're all like into this. So like I'd rather support like people I know where their the money's going, and I also it's just I don't know. It's kind of more
that makes a lot. That makes 1,000% sense. And also, like in the eBay market, it was a little shady. Like you could get like they could grade the record like excellent. You wanted an excellent record, and you felt like you were paying an excellent record. But then you got it, and it was like all fucked up. And you're like, what?
The Russian version.
Oh, shit. The Russian version. Exactly. You're like, damn, you guys completely messed with my head. I've been to Discogs a few times.
That's a good term. Great term. I'm going to use that when I get a shitty record from Discogs.
Yeah. Damn, the Russian version.
I've been Discogs.
Buying tons of stuff of Bandcamp during
the pandemic.
So was I, man.
Yeah,
so was
that's stimulus money, baby. Buy them first presses.
Yeah, I didn't use my stimulus money, but as time was kind of going on, like I was like, oh, I got really back into tapes. I was like, this is the cheapest thing they got. You get a download of the record as well. You kind of get your own little like player, so it's almost like your own little Walkman of just Bandcamp stuff that you like. So it's like you specifically went out of your way to get this on Bandcamp. So like now it's all encapsulated in one little player thing too, which was kind of cool,
Well, I guess that's a good segue, Roy, because now we're on the subject of tapes. Maybe we should let y'all know what's coming out soon, no?
Yes, we should. So
what's coming out?
What's coming out, Jerry?
We didn't show one thing here. Sorry.
We're gonna let Jerry talk a little about
some special goody goods.
My homie.
What do you guys want to talk about? The 7-inch?
What do you want to talk about?
Yeah,
let's talk about the 7-inch.
Yeah, the 7-inch is pretty cool.
Shout out to the guys from Putridarium too. They sent a video that we're gonna play after this. There's gonna be a second stream after this Death Metal Podcast interview. And that's going to be where we show a Putridarium video that they made as a fucking tribute to this
video.
Yeah. Honored to be doing it with them.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a split 7-inch of Ancient Death, and then German band Putridarium, which basically this is being pulled together right now. And the material that is on the 7-inch was actually the song that myself and Oscar heard that was like that led to us like being an alliance with Ancient Death. Can you guys talk to that a little bit?
Yeah. So funny enough, this single or song that we are providing for the split, we wrote during the same time era as all the other songs from Sacred Vessel, and Derek is a genius and was like, hey, we're doing, we were already dead set on the 4 songs that were going to be on Sacred Vessel. And we were going to leave off this other tune. And Derek was like, hey, we should record this. Like, it would be really good to have this in the mix too. especially because it was like a finished song and everything. And so so we decided to record it, and we kind of kept it aside. And thematically, it's similar to Sacred Vessel, but it didn't. For me, it didn't feel like it flowed. I feel like the way we had put out Sacred Vessel was perfect the way it was, like with those 4 particular tracks. And it had this overall theme kind of going throughout it. But yeah, so this song is it's definitely like our shortest song for sure. And it's just ripping, and yeah.
It had a deep vibe to it, so it actually had put me and Oscar together, right? And like Eric said, hey, I was jamming with this other band. I'm playing drums. I did a session with them or something like that. Derek, you were on Death Metal Podcast.
Yeah. So what happened was, this is a good opportunity to explain this. So
yeah, some of the history.
So Jerry,
this happened because of this show. You got Ancient Death connected because of Death Metal.
Yeah.
So I met the singer first of Jerry and Ray's old band. So I got familiar with their material because he gave me some tapes. And I heard the guitar playing, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is like that look that Ozzy gave Randy Rhoads in that little meme. Like, that's how I looked. Like, I was like, these fucking kids are fucking sick, So I always I enjoyed their playing, and that, and that band was really sick, So this so happens, like, I was working with somebody in a tattoo shop that knew them, and so we met up at some shows. So like we saw Immolation. It was like right before the pandemic. It was like Immolation, Blood Incantation show, and like Mass. And I started like getting to know Jerry and Ray, and so we just talked back and forth and everything. And I was playing in like this thrash band with this other guy for a couple years. And the guitar player had parted ways, and they needed a guitar player, and they had just broken up. So I was like, "Yo, I know this fucking kid, man. He's sick. Like he's authentic. And he's into it, and he knows exactly what we need. You know what I'm saying?" So I was like, "Why don't we give him a shot?" So that was Jerry. Jerry comes down. He's like a young Trey, comes down, just crushes it fucking instantly. And like we're like, yup, this is the guy, So we started playing shows with Jerry, and then he had his new band developing. There was another drummer, and that drummer had left like abruptly at the last minute. So they had this kid Rich come in. I was commenting earlier. He's a great kid, awesome kid, like holy cool kid. Love this kid.
Yep.
So and that's him right there commenting.
Yep.
So
shout out to Rich.
Yeah, shout out to Rich for sure. And so we, what happened was Jerry had approached me. He said, "Hey, Derek, because like now we're playing together." And he's hearing what I'm doing, and he says, "I've had this project," and he kind of explained to me the pitfalls and the ups and downs of it. He goes, "I know you understand, like how this music is supposed to be, like it. So would you be willing to come in the studio with us and put your beats down to this because He's like, I got drum parts in mind, but I'm open to hearing what you can do with it too, So I was like,
unholy alliance.
I was like, this is the nicest kid in the fucking world. Like, we get along really great, like we're into the same shit. Like, these dudes are into disembowelment, ripping corpse, and all this killer possessed, and like the real shit, Like, I'm like, dude, you absolutely, like, So we go in that winter and we record locally with an up and coming guy. He did a Church Burn LP, and we were really happy with the results. So I said, dude, this dude's one of my bros. I played with him in bands in the past, and I think it'd be really good to do it with him. So they took, Barry, Ray, and Jasmine took me up on that, and we worked on the material. I, bit into it, went over parts, went in, nailed it out, and so that's what happened. So you had contacted me, Roy, and said, "Hey, what have you been doing lately?"
Yeah, what have you been up to?
Yeah, in other words, we had already talked about Rhode Island death metal stuff on.
Yeah, and the church burn, and then you're like, "Hey, I played drums in this thing," Would this be a picture from the sessions or recordings or?
Yeah, that is one of many great photos.
I think that's day one of actual tracking.
Tracking in this.
Yeah,
one.
so Derek and I had tracked together, and I was on a scratch track while he did. It's all live too, you know. There's no clicks, there's no metronomes. It's just me and him in the studio banging the songs out. And
we got to talk about this pedal board right here. I'm sorry to break this thread a little bit, but you got a really banging pedal board right here, dude. Like, I didn't notice.
Yeah, I brought more than I needed, but I figured better safe than sorry.
Okay.
I will say, like, I don't rely on pedals for how I play guitar, but I do think they're really important in terms of the sound of the band.
Right.
And we have a lot of and that's the influence from Floyd and Lush and, you know, Slow Dive, all those shoegazy kind of bands. They always have this kind of really crazy reverb delay thing going on, and it's just it's so killer. And I was like, man, there's not a lot of death metal.
You brought that a little bit to the scene because there's not a lot of bands doing using. Well,
yeah,
some, but
I think there's there's some there's some heavier bands that sometimes make me think of it, like Disembowelment's the big one. Like,
Disembowelment demo helped a lot.
Guitar breaks with just this infinite reverb sound, and like it's just like, whoa, like you can do so much with this. Like I don't want to just.
You can hear it like underneath the music. Yeah, weird.
So
the sludge.
Delays are a huge part of definitely a huge part of our sound for sure. And you know, there's certain parts that, you know, we don't need them, and then there's others that we do. And sometimes Ray and I have them together, sometimes it's like just me, and you know, and we're already starting to experiment with doing it to like the bass now and stuff. Like you hear like, you know, another Floyd reference, but like one of these days the intro just with the bass, you know, and just this delay bass going, and it's just so heavy.
I think there's two things to talk about too with Ancient Death, which like some bands can't breach these two together. And then Oscar just mentioned one of them, the sludge. But then you guys also kind of have like a little element of like thrash in a weird way. Where I feel like, and usually you can't mix those two elements because it's like you have thrash or you have sludge, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think like there's certain
I
bands...
hear the Slayer in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's like huge. Like Ray and I, ever since we were kids, we were like, I'm Jeff and you're Kerry, and like we just how
I hear it on Sacred Vessel. One of the there's a Slayer.
Oh yeah.
I think it's in I think it's Celestial Beings. Is that Celestial Beings, Jerry?
What was that?
Is that on Celestial Beings, that Slayer riff? You know, that sounds like a South of Heaven.
What's up, Bill Manley?
Maybe
joining us, brother.
Yeah, maybe.
I hear it.
Yeah, hit the like button if you're joining the Death Metal Roundtable. This one is with Ancient Death, and we have Derek, and then we have Jerry. I grew up during the Venom, Celtic Frost, Possessed days. Been a fan since Cannibal Corpse with Fisher was epic. Atheist, Death, Morbid Angel. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, Oscar, it's really ironic, though, when you talk about the whole thrash death thing, because when I listen to, like, the first Deicide album and, like, earlier death metal albums, like, there's a lot of lyrics, like, stuffed into the songs, which was, like, thrash metal vocalists, you know, like, if you listen to, like 80s, late 80s thrash, like, they crammed, like,
like a lot of lyrics, right?
Where, like, it was like that with just a gruffier vocal, but they would throw in, like, you know, the same kind of thrash cadence with
well, I mean, Leave Scars, Dark Angel, man. The lyrics on. I mean, if you look at the lyrics, this guy, I mean, he's 100 miles. I mean, he's going off even with the riffs in that particular album, man.
Yeah, but I think
and
like
he did it too with cadence, like especially with the German bands and the cadence, like. That was something growing up I didn't realize about until years later, where like, you know, Destruction and stuff, they were like hitting like cadence singing on certain songs, like where it didn't belong. And you were like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Well, like to me, death metal, like early, a lot, not, you know, it kind of started to breathe a little later on. Well, not necessarily like why I like Scream Bloody Gore more is because Chuck didn't stuff a million fucking lyrics into the songs. Like, it was to the point.
Yeah,
and it had some eeriness and atmosphere to it. where a lot more of the brutal bands like.
What's up, Evil Antichrist?
You're right about that.
Rules, it does, but it's just the point that it's more. I think it's more enveloped from thrash because the vocals are more like thrash records were. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see that now. I never really. You come out with a lot of profound stuff, Derek. I have to say, dude, on this live.
I don't know. It's just how I see it. Like, just from
how you hear it. Because you hear things that, like, other people, like, you know, music fans, sometimes some people look at things kind of a little superficially, but, like, you hear these other things that, like, you've mentioned on here that I hear. So it's weird. It's fun to talk and build with other people that hear the same little things.
Well, now everything's compartmentalized. So people are like, nope, that's not that. Back then, it was all being created. So, like, there was no, wait a minute, Glenn. That sounds like thrash, you know, like it was being developed. So that's what's cool about this. You know, we can talk about that now because we've seen it happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's really cool, you know.
All right, hold on. Your old drummer has a comment here, which is good. Took me a while to get into the classics, grew up on reggae and hip hop, straight into black metal from there. Jerry and Ray basically bullied me into checking out old bands.
That's awesome.
Hell yeah. That's a comment, man.
Very cool, Jerry.
You know what? There's what do you call it? There's actually, I have it in here. You sent the photo with the old drummer too. I had photos on my phone with your older drummer.
Yeah, Rich.
Yeah, Richard. He did a couple shows.
Yeah, Rich did a few shows with us. He actually helped us out in a pinch, and I'm very like vocal about him basically saving the band.
Absolutely.
You know, like we had a like.
Also, Rich, if you're watching this, you might actually be focused in on the next episode, the music episode of this, because we're gonna play some of this stuff, and then also we're gonna play some other new stuff.
Yeah, Rich killed it. I mean, he really he has such a different style, and him not being a death metal kid was like really cool for us because we got to just he got to come in and help us out with these songs that kind of were already established. And we had already recorded the record with Derek. And, you know, Derek was only going to do the session work initially. He saved us in a pinch.
Let's talk to Ray and Jasmine a little bit, just like, you know them. Like, how did they form in with you? And
so Ray and I go back a really long time. We became friends when we were like 11. And like I said, we discovered kind of death metal together. And, you know, we got into different styles of death metal. He loved the Swedish and Finnish stuff a lot. And I liked a lot of the American death metal stuff. But then we ended up kind of showing each other each of the things we were discovering. And we he had played guitar already at that point too. And so we basically kept learning ourselves and teaching each other new things we were discovering and different influences. And so we've been in a bunch of bands together. We had a band that I kind of led when I was 14 or so. And you know, I was singing back then. That was the only other band I've ever sang in. And I, you know, it's like pre-puberty, you know, so it was like high vocals, trying to sound like Emperor vocals or something. But then he had another band already at that time, Garroted, and so you know, I ended up joining with them and helping out with some live shows, and then became an official member. And so we did that band together, I think, for maybe 6 or 7 years, maybe 8, I don't know. And
band too.
Just getting your chops in with Garroted a little bit.
Oh yeah, and like that stuff was like really crazy technical, just like, and it wasn't like technical in the terms of like tech death bands. It was technical in terms of the material that we were playing.
Like Ripping Corpse, like old Ripping Corpse technical.
Corrosion of Sanity, kind of Gorguts-ish a little bit.
Like that. Old school, but like, you know, musician old school.
Yeah, just not this, you know, so
Frankie,
what about where did Jasmine come in the picture?
So she came in, we became friends actually through some mutual friends, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. And she had played some guitar, but I had started Ancient Death before Garroted broke up. I had like started writing this material, and I was like, and Ray and I were like, this doesn't really fit garroted. Let's use this for something else.
Okay.
And so I had all this material written, and I was like, I really need a bass player, and she's never been in a band or anything, so she was like, I really want to play bass for this band. Like, I love this material. It's like, and she wasn't raised on like death metal, so it was like she's like has almost like an outsider kind of perspective for it. And so she learned how to play bass for the band, and so I mean, in the like 3 or 4 years that she's played, like it's like insane. Like I think of like I've been playing
killing it.
And you guys you have a big undertone, so like.
Well, I just want to jump in and say something because I think it's really important. I can really identify with this kind of opportunities because players really thrive when they have something to work off of. Like if I didn't have like Head Rot and Skip and Mike Brown to learn with and have something to follow, I probably would have never been able to pick it up so quickly. So like seeing Jasmine do her thing and watch how quickly she's progressed from when I joined the band to now, it's like 5 or 10 years. I played with guys for 20 years that can't do that.
Right.
Just saying.
It's really
there's sometimes there's that person around you that's a trailblazer, and if you follow them and you listen to them and you can just keep your mouth shut and watch and listen, you can actually learn a lot.
The thing too is, I feel like a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves, and and it's a thing that I don't really see talked about much. But for me, it's never been about like, hey, I want to write this music that sounds like this. Like it's like or like just overthinking it. It's like sometimes it's like I just want to play in a band and write some music that I'm feeling, and I want to share that. And whether that person has played for 1 year or 20 years, like as long as it works well with the music, that's what's important. So Definitely. If someone can only play chords and stuff, as long as it's genuine and true and it's good music, it's like that's all that matters. It's like I don't like you could be the craziest shredder in the world, and it's like it doesn't mean shit to me unless it's like genuine. It's I think that's really important. And so it's like I know tons of bass players. I could have probably grabbed someone who is really technically efficient, or whatever. But it's like, no, I want to be in a band with my best friend who also cares about music and also is a fucking sick player too.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want.
She had the stuff enough. In other words, she had enough stuff, a good timing and ability to pick up things quick enough to where she could keep up. And we could embrace
Another good thing I want to say about your band, and I noticed that and I'm not saying a lot of bands do this, but some bands do this nowadays. Like a lot of bands play up like the female member thing, but you guys never had to play
that shit.
because basically every member in the band is so unique that you guys kind of bring your own thing to the combination of all the members. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Double shredding.
I'm excited.
The undertone of the bass, and then also Derek with the drums. Was like the more I had heard the newer stuff, I realized how much more dimensional he was on drums.
Yeah,
because he was playing a lot of slow stuff, but then the faster stuff he was playing, I was like, holy shit! Like I didn't realize, because Derek, I always thought he was a bass player growing up, obviously, because you were the bass player I knew.
Always,
So then when I saw you playing drums more recently, when you guys toured and played some shows, which we're going to show the flyers for, I noticed like the dimensions of the drums were like really tight, dude. But at the same time, subtle with the older school kind of thing going on too.
Yeah.
He's stepping up to the plate.
Dude. No, thank you. Like I've always been a drummer, but I used like the big four always was the Pete Sandoval, there's the number one. And then here's a funny one. The second one is Danny Schuler from Biohazard.
Okay.
For the groovy type parts. And then Chris Reifert. And then finally you got, Dave Lombardo.
Right.
So those four right there, the thrash, kind of autopsy, any type of beat you hear. But the double time on the ride cymbal is all Slayer, you know. It's all Slayer.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. You mentioned Biohazard because that's cool. I mean, Biohazard was a big thing for me growing up. You know, like we would go to Biohazard shows and like
it's
they were
not
super
metal, but it's like the drums are so mind blowing. You get no choice but to say whoa too. You know, and that guy always hit the drums really hard.
Yeah,
you know, like and it had a dynamic, but it just stuck with me. I can't shake it. No matter what, I always fit in influences from that guy. And I'm grateful because he's a slamming fucking drummer, you know?
Yeah.
So I to this day, you know, because that's how I got my chops from drumming, was from those drummers. You know what I mean? So it's funny because the things can haunt you that, you know, I learned, you know, early on. It's like, oh, be careful what you learn because you're not going to be able to shake it very easy. You know?
Yeah.
It's hard
that's
to
true.
Well, that mental funeral is eternal.
It sure is. I mean, to me, my ultimate autopsy is Retribution EP. Yeah, I don't know why. It's just the production of it, like the atmosphere of the sound of it. And people will be like, "What?" But like,
no, that's my
shit,
favorite
man.
too.
That was my shit.
That was my favorite.
Something about it that just hits me the right way.
That's my favorite too, man. Steve DiGiorgio.
Yep.
The master.
Steve DiGiorgio knocking it out of the park. Aren't you speaking on the Steve DiGiorgio thing? I don't know if I have it here too. There's a lot to go down this rabbit hole with your band actually in a short period of time, Jerry, I have to say, and Derek. Because like you guys came and were doing things, you know, like a little while ago as far as like your old recordings. And, you know, you took some pretty eerie looking photos and then those ended up on the release. And then you stayed out there busy in your local scene, basically playing like a lot of shows. And like you said, eventually, you know, originally you didn't even really think about being the singer, but the next thing you know, you're up there kind of murdering it, dude, you know?
Well, thank you.
And then playing with decent bands. I mean, a lot of the lineups were like kind of like more, you know, like fitting with like what I considered like death metal bands, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're like Ascend Dead and like the Innumerable Forms, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I always thought that was cool, you know, like you guys kind of, you know, these bands like are, to me, they consider the underground essence of death metal bands. You know what I mean?
Well, look at us wrong. Like we have our outside influences, but we are truly authentic ripping death metal. And we belong in, you know, playing with authentic bands that are underground that, you know, really we're lucky because we fit very well with the lineups and the shows that were booked for us.
But staying prolific, I see.
Like,
there's something
Oscar,
about that.
Like helping promote us for our Baltimore run. People like Kevin Ord and Worcester, Ralph Steiner, who does Codex Obscurum booking. And does, you know, he's very, very like a big integral help to keeping us like booked with really good lineups and everything like that.
The old show from him that he had done, right? And doesn't he have another one coming, which is this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Ossuary.
Yeah.
Ossuary is amazing.
Can't wait.
Yeah,
I just found out too that band Wormface is Shane from Anthropophagus. He's another band. Yeah. And I didn't know that. He told me the other day. He goes, "Oh, I'm playing with you guys." I was like, "Really? I didn't see you guys." Because I'm like, I would have known. He's like, "Oh no, I'm in this band." I'm like, "Oh fuck yeah!"
This was an ode to that other show too. This was what, down in Maryland?
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, Concrete Caveman.
How was that show?
Yeah, it was awesome, man. It was really cool. We had some technical issues, but like we got through it and you know gave it our all.
Derek's
they really like you.
chops are first rate. Hell yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Like led me in a cornfield.
Thank you.
Oh, this is just, there's a conversation in the chat about Havahedge and Profanatica, which is pretty sick.
I love it.
Typical death metal podcasters.
Yeah, dude, that's a greatness.
Yeah, people like this is our community of our death metal heads here.
Busy in the comments about everything.
Like, and that's how
me and Jerry
is like the new tape trading, the new zine, right?
Yeah. It's true.
I wanted to be that. Like, if I didn't move into doing it like that, I was like, I'm gonna interview bands, because I was like, you know what the premise of Death Metal Podcast is? It was like, you know what, I have so many cool phone calls with people. It would be cool to somehow like share those with other people. Yeah. So like that was the premise of this like thing, Mm-hmm. And I realized I'm like, well, I guess I could probably. I tried to like see like, oh, let me edit this together, and I was like, you know what, this feels so fake. Like I can't get down with this Eddie Trunk shit. So basically, like,
people might think that it's like, oh, you're just being lazy, but no, it's real. Like, it's not prompted. There's no like plan. It's just I have so much knowledge of what I want to do, and I want to show you from the source of it, not what I studied in a book. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, that's what I mean. This is excellent fanzine content. Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I do come prepared. I mean, I have, the lineups of the bands, and I know about the band. I'm not like a novice to this band. You know what I mean? So basically, like, I definitely follow. I follow along when Jerry did have that Lush shirt on, you know what I mean? Because if you look at the members of the rest of his band, they're wearing Morbid Angel shirts. Your bassist has a Spectral Voice shirt on, but you're wearing something that's completely off the hinge.
Yep.
Awesome, dude. Yeah.
Which you actually got. My boy who did the graphics was giving props. He's like, dude, they like Lush, bro.
Yeah, dude. Very important band. Very important band.
Eddie Trunk is knowledgeable, hair rock, and that's it. Yeah,
well, hey, I want to say something.
UFO.
Hey, one thing about Eddie Trunk was responsible. He was a Megaforce guy.
Yeah,
but he didn't deal with like the heavier bands. He dealt with like Ace Frehley and like a lot of the more like older bands. But like he was an important part of a lot of shit. So yeah, it's easy to shit on him because he's kind of lame.
No, I mean I'm not completely shitting on him.
Oh no, I can't stand the guy. I can't stand the guy like a lot. I don't really like a lot of the things he says. But like
Lush best song was the ABBA cover. No,
he was a part of like the lineage of metal. So he's just more of a boomer now.
Yeah. He just gets with his friends. I mean, that's kind of what I do on here.
Yeah,
I'm
he's a scenester. He's a boomer, and he's a scenester for old man shit.
Old man poser bands.
Pretty much.
Which makes me the scenester for the death metal ones, I guess.
Yeah. But I respect him for what he did. Like, I still respect the guy for what he did for
No, so do I. I respect that.
Absolutely.
Even the guy that did the death metal pie chart. That one show where the guy has like, he goes through like all like he has like a pie chart almost. And he says like, these bands were this. And he shows like Autopsy, Death.
Oh, the Banger TV.
Yeah. And then he has like a pie chart of like the black metal bands. Like he's pretty on point. I mean, he throws one or two bands he likes in there, which I'm like, they're not part of that pie chart. But you know what I mean? Besides that, he's pretty on point.
I think when that started, it was pretty cool. But then the more he went, the worse it got, I think.
Yeah, a little bit.
Maybe like the second album, like when someone puts out like the first album, everyone's like, is the second album going to be good? And then it comes out and everyone's like, oh, what's that? It's kind of like what that is to, like the more he did, the worse.
To me too.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Because you see, I mean, they do try to bring on cats with metal knowledge on there. But the problem is, like with your Banger TVs, you feel this underlying payola, which basically ruins it for the whole show. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know what I mean? Like they're talking about bands that like are foreign to you, but then they're mixing it up with bands that but the bands that are foreign to you, they're kind of doing it in a Metal Forces kind of way where they bring these bands' names into the mix that it seems like it was paid to be there or something. I mean, I could be wrong about this, obviously, but maybe they just listen to different metal than I do. Because it's like, well, where is this band? Where is this band? Like, you guys didn't notice Innumerable Forms like took over the entire underground this past month, like 2 weeks, dude. So like sometimes it's just a little confusing to me. So it seems like a big paid ass commercial.
Yeah, probably. But I think like too, it's like if you study something out of a book, how does it come out compared to when you had been there for it?
Yeah.
Too. So like who knows? Like what I gathered, I watched a bunch of them a couple of years back. Like there was a few of them that I liked. A lot of it I thought was weak, you know. But
yeah,
like,
it'd be a little inauthentic.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Think, like some of it like looks like it was studied, you know. Like let me read up on this before I do it. But then some of it he was there for, so it seemed like kind of like read through that a little bit. You know what I mean? Like you could tell he was in this scene at this time, and you know, kind of digs older shit, but doesn't know he wasn't there for it, so he's got to.
We're not banging on Banger TV, but basically, like,
sorry,
sorry guys, not really that great. Anyway, so you know, I felt like maybe I should do something that was like more representative of like the underground, you know. So that's probably why I did this. You know what I mean? And then the connections maybe that I know between bands. It's just like, oh, I know that guy's from that band, or like I would go to shows when I was 17, 16 years old, and I would see George Fisher, and he was also 16 or 17 years old. You know what I mean? 18 years old. So like these people grew up around me. So like, you know what I mean? Oscar too. Like we would go to shows and be around people that like King Fowley when he was like 25. You know what I mean?
They were like young.
My first band, Head Rot, we were on a compilation tape with Corpse Grinder.
Right.
So, like, I didn't even know it was him until the Monstrosity 7-inch, the one that came out, the white and black cover one.
Yeah, Corpse Grinder. I saw them. They played a show with Incantation, and then like the sound guy left, and I was like left at the sound, and I was like doing the sound for the show.
But then I realized it was the same guy. Like Corpse Grinder was in my that's when I, you know, so it's funny. I mean, we compilation tape called Eternal Sickness. Head Rot track, my address is in it, my name's in it with the contact info.
Yeah, what about old Head Rot? Let's talk to that, because you were would you call you original member of Head Rot, or was there a bass player before you?
I was before even Mike Brown. Actually.
So yeah, you played on the early "I Gulp Your Guts" demo, right?
Yeah, I did. "I Gulp Your Guts" demo. I did the second demo, and that is it.
Okay, and then as far as like Head Rot, I mean, you know, their name kind of got around in the scene, like, and you would play shows locally where Jim Fleet might hook up some stuff, but then like the name was getting around in like some fanzines, etc. You know what I mean? And like it was like getting like a little bit of steam. You know what I mean?
I remember.
We were being looked at by Metal Blade 1992, 1991. And there was two people. It was a rep called, her name was Lori Meadows. She was a rep for Metal Blade. And there was Psycho, the guy, the glasses.
I know those two names.
Cannibal Corpse was a big part of there. He was from Buffalo. He was in the scene with Cannibal Corpse. He was RC rep too. So, and we did a weekend of shows in New York, and we were that close to possibly doing a Metal Blade thing because the gore stuff was really breaking ground at that time. And we just
Can we get out the pie charts already? Says Francisco.
The only pie charts is probably fucking.
But you know, Head Rot was really important. And I remember going to see a Head Rot show, and I was like, "Damn, man, these guys are scuzzy as hell."
Well, what's cool is like I was weird. Yeah, go ahead.
I think we saw Head Rot, Roy, down the shore.
Yeah, in Asbury Park.
Asbury Park, right?
Yeah, dude, that was me. I was there. I was playing it. But what's cool is, I mean, like, there's a shirt here. I wasn't given exactly to me because we ran. Jim Konya played a show in Connecticut. I'll make this with Witch King, and when Head Rot did our reunion little line up with Dan, Skip, and Mike and me. And Jim Konya comes up to us, and he knew everything about us from 1990 on. Like he was there.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. And he gave the last shirt to my buddy Sean McQuaid, who I actually traded it. So I have it now. I actually have the shirt. I still wear it that Jim Konya gave us. But he ran out of shirts. He's like, "Oh, dude, I gave the last one to Sean, but you could have some stickers." So he gave me a bunch of Nunslaughter and Schnauzer stickers. And he knew so much about the band because a guy from Ohio did the 7-inch called Dissonant Records out of Cleveland. Right. So we played with Embalmer and stuff. So a lot of Ohio, we played out in Cleveland at a fest. at I forget the name of the fucking
Flashes.
place. Yeah, yes, Flashes. Thank you. So Ohio, a lot of people know about Head Rot in Ohio.
Yeah.
From the 90s, early 90s. You know?
And then there would be Mike with his barn there. He had like a practice place, kind of like a party spot kind of thing, right?
He owned a big black
Did
house.
that influence any bands besides Head Rot, or I was just out of curiosity because that looked like a metal epicenter in a weird way.
Well, the thing is that Mike was like, he had a big house, and it was amazing because it was like his house, so he could do whatever the fuck he wanted in it. There's this big giant house in the middle of like a suburban kind of nice neighborhood, and it was so big that like you could play in the basement, no one really hears it and the noise.
Right.
So we didn't play in the barn. The barn was more like a place where you'd have keg parties.
Oh, okay.
So the barn was where, like, if you had a keg party or a big party, we would hang out in there, but we practiced in the basement. But everyone came over, like all the bands, like Drop Dead, like even the Drop Dead guys came over sometimes, but like the Vital guys, mostly Phlegm guys. It was mostly like Jim and Tom and Andy. Mostly like Jim and Tom. Tom was like more than anybody, Tom from Phlegm he hung out the most. He was like the daily guy.
Right. But, he was the daily guy.
He was at Mike Brown's all the time. But that's where the Phlegm Head Rock connection really, back then kind of formed out of, because we, Jim took us, put us on. He was doing all the big fests.
Yeah, Jim put you on, man. Yeah.
He put us on the shows, you know what I mean? But it came from Mike and Kenny because they opened up for Death and Devastation in a band called Self Destruct. So they already had like a following, you know what I mean, from that band. So when they joined Head Rot, it was so early on, you know what I mean? It was in like 1990. But like it was so early on that like it was a big deal in the local.
So yeah, actually speaking about early on, like so Vital Remains was like an early on thing that you would look at, and now you're in a band with the guitar, or he played drums in Vital Remains, and now he plays guitar, Dave Suzuki.
No, Dave Suzuki didn't come around actually till mid-90s. But This is before Dave Suzuki. This is like Jeff Breslin era, the original era.
That's when I see the most anyway.
Yeah, Dave Suzuki came in after. They actually like found him from Vegas, and he moved down here because he's like a phenomenon, amazing motherfucker. But so he moved down here, after like the first couple of albums. You know what I mean? They had already had the first two released by the time Dave came in.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they had 2 albums out, and then Dave came in after that. Yeah.
Drop Dead in the Armageddon Shop.
Yeah.
Let Us Pray rules.
Yeah. It's original shit. Because a lot of people like I'll say like they'll talk shit like nowadays, like, oh yeah, I really like this because Glenn was on it, but the early stuff's kind of weak. It's like, well, you didn't see it live, motherfucker.
No, I saw it live. They were killer.
They were the first guys in America that had a full black metal type stage show, carrying coffins on stage with candles and fucking corpse paint.
They did.
And like fucking a full on show. They were one of the first bands that did that in the States. So people could talk all the shit they want.
Yeah, because Jeff Breslin actually came off like a member of Blasphemy in a weird way.
Absolutely. So
absolutely, right? Back in the day,
on the internet, like, oh yeah, that stuff's weak. I'm not really into the first Vital. But if you've seen them live, I don't think you'd be saying that. You know,
like you
wouldn't be saying that because it would have hit you way different. Because there was no bands doing the fucking black metal style Black Death stuff until Vital Remains in the U.S. There was a few other bands too. Don't get me wrong. But I'm talking about the stage show, like the atmosphere and all of that. Like Vital Remains were the front runners in that. So people forget that. They don't realize how good that band is, dude.
In the U.S., they forget that. I mean, They could say Profanatica was early on that front, but basically, Vital Remains was kind of doing it just a little before that in their own kind of way.
Yeah, they did a full...
There's very few bands they kind of pulled from that like Brazilian kind of thing going on. The Sarcófagos and like the Chacal and that type of stuff.
Yeah, dude. They were doing full on, like, dude, the stage shows were insane. That Vital Remains. They would like do this whole intro, and then they would have fucking sick candles, satanic pentagrams everywhere, all sorts of shit, and they would come on stage with the fucking Franciscan robes and like with this coffin, And then he would bring a coffin on stage and like put it in the front of the stage, and then just like blood and fucking sick corpse paint, and that was like 92, fucking, because they were new to Peaceville. Like Death Records picked them up, and they were doing the first album, and it was so sick. Like they did a thrash 7-inch, and there was some hype from that, and like it was so iconic because they were pulling that from the Absu stuff and the early shit that was going on in Europe, and Osmos shit.
And they kind of stayed busy through like the mid 90s while a lot of bands kind of trailed off, right? In a way. Yeah, and then do you feel like there's kind of like a gap in the scene between like Rhode Island and Mass and stuff between like, late 90s and then for like a little while. And then you kind of started to see like your church burn. You started to see like Vital.
I pulled out, man. I always loved the same fucking Scream Bloody Gore tapes and Blood Feast tapes I never got rid of.
Right.
So I always listened to the music. I never stopped listening. But like what happened was, I'd say around here in my town, my city, like by 93, you started seeing like dudes with the flame button down collar shirts. And had the long chain wallets, and it was like, "Yo, dude, like, what's up, bro?"
Yeah.
And that shit started like turning me off. Like I couldn't get it into that, so I started getting into like Infest and some of the extreme hardcore shit, like the noisy hardcore, like Infest and Rorschach and shit like that. So I got really into that kind of stuff in the mid '90s a lot more than. So I missed out on a lot of things for a little while. So
I think me and Oscar could talk to this if you don't mind me cutting you off. Because Oscar, do you remember this? That at some point, like we kind of got disenchanted with death metal. This was like probably around like Ceremonium times. And then me and you, we would go to CBGBs, right? And what would be some of the bands we would see?
I mean, we'd go to CBGBs. We'd see, particular show that I remember. It was that band. I think that what we saw was it. Did we see Cattle Press at CBGB?
Yeah, Cattle Press, and then there was
Cattle
that one
Press.
show with Shine.
Shine, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember that.
That's cool.
Which was like Wino's band from The Obsessed.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Vitus. They played like a one-off show. And we were like, holy fuck, this band is heavy.
Well, we saw I don't think it was Shine that we saw. It was there was St. Vitus. What's the other band that he has?
No, it was Shine. It was
it Shine?
Spirit Caravan too.
Yeah, I think we saw Spirit Caravan as well.
Yeah. I saw Spirit Caravan at the Hard Rock Cafe with Evoken.
Oh, whoa, that's sick. Evoken?
Yeah.
With Evoken. Oh.
Yeah, with Evoken.
I just love that band so much.
I got to see a really cool show where
I believe it was Spirit Caravan, but I remember I met Wino at that show. We hung out. I hung out with him at that show.
I want to see a really cool show. And it was like Ceremonium, like Electric Wizard, Evoken. Am I wrong about that?
Where?
I know it was definitely Electric Wizard, Evoken, or something. Maybe Bill Manley was there. I saw Bill Manley in the chat.
Electric Wizard.
Like death metal kind of got stale in a weird way at some point. So like we would have to reach out to like grindcore shows and like doom shows.
Yeah, we would do like the doom shows, just off shows.
I liked grindcore stuff. Definitely like that a little bit more than what like death metal was doing, but. So I kind of checked out, but I checked out around 94. But that doesn't mean it's funny, because that doesn't mean, oh, we're back. It means I got into some other shit too. That was sick.
Well,
it helped. It helped out my music. Like being a musician, it helped my diversity and being a player. Like if someone's a fan, they can talk all the shit they want. That's cool. They're a fan of the music and an enthusiast. But when you're a musician, I think there's a different element. I think Jerry might agree with me a lot on this. That like we might see things through a different parameter, like in the music like world, like as a player. So like Jerry, like for example, he pulls influence from a lot of bands that have a lot to their music because he's a guitar player with a lot of talent and technical know-how. So like, of course you're gonna love like Classic Cynic because they were doing crazy fucking hard shit. Where like a fan, a listener doesn't play, they might see it through a different lens. You know what I mean? So that's how kind of what I was going through, you know?
Yeah.
Disassociate is the other band that I was thinking, Roy, that we would check out a couple of times, bro.
Well, Ralphie from Disassociate was the one that set up all those shows, so he usually threw
I seen like their early shows. I seen them like early on. Disassociate. Yeah.
They were sick, man.
They were great.
Yeah, there was a couple shows that me and Roy went to where we didn't know the bands too much.
Yeah, we didn't know the bands. We would go to the shows and we wouldn't even know who was playing, basically. We were just like, yo, let's just go because this looks hard.
Have you ever done that, Jerry? No. He always knew he was going to see.
But there was a couple of years where I kind of like checked out of the whole scene. I went through, Roy, the story with me with my my collection. Like somebody stole my whole collection, bro, from like the 90s, bro, and everything. So I just kind of like, I went through a couple of years where I just wasn't having it. I wasn't listening to any new bands, nothing at all. I mean, I think there was a couple of times, a couple of years where we're like, I wasn't even in touch with you for a couple of years, right?
There was a little point. You know what the funniest thing is? Me and Oscar, we used to live together, right? And we lived in this apartment with like a bunch of other dudes. And one time, Oscar, he had this Rottweiler, and
Kronos.
And his name was Kronos, right? And then like Oscar shows up one day, and he's like, "Dude, look, bro, I got a Bathory record." And you know what it was? It was the Yellow Goat, dude. And he sticks it on the wall of the room that Kronos is in, right? And then one day, I go in the room and the fucking album is eaten, dude.
Oh, no, Roy.
You know how like treasured that record is nowadays?
It's like worth like $5,000.
Your freaking dog ate it, bro.
Is
you
it
might
worth $5,000?
still have it.
$2,000? Is it like worth, depending on the condition, right? Up to $5,000, right?
This thing was eaten, dude. Like for
real. Back then, it probably wasn't worth that much.
No, no one even gave a fuck about it back then.
You know what I mean? Oh, you got one now.
Record, huh?
Yeah.
I ain't the one.
Listen, I want that we're talking about this. I got this record. It was given to me by Omar from Putrefact.
Oh shit!
Damn.
He gave me this in early 90s because Omar checked out of the scene in the early 90s.
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
My question to you guys that maybe you might know this, and I think I've asked you this, Roy, is this is the original one?
Well, it depends. Is it Black Mark, Combat? What is it? Like what's?
Yeah, is it a Combat or a Black Mark?
It's probably Combat. It could be Black Mark because Yellow Goat's. It's Black Mark.
It's got the little claw there.
Productions. That's the original one. Yeah.
So my question is because
does it have a sheet inside it with a like a, what do you call it? Like a merchandising sheet? Because that would make it original too.
Yeah, Black Mark. That's a Black Mark one. Yep.
All right, so that's an original old school Yellow Goat, dude. That's a super rare record nowadays, brother.
That's the real deal.
Yeah,
I mean, I have an OG.
You had 2 copies then. I saw your dog eat that.
Yeah, no, Kronos ate Obsessed by Cruelty.
Oh, upset. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, but this one right here.
Incorrect.
Check it out, bro.
I
don't think Omar even played this record, bro.
Yellow Goat only on
Black Mark. Thank you, El Necron, for that. Because I know
record is worth more than my car.
Well, I have the return.
I want to know is
I wasn't sure if
because
that was a Combat reissued it, but it was on white, right? I believe it's yellow.
I don't know.
My question is because the guy that gave Omar that gave this to me, I mean, he was a lot younger than I was. He checked out of the scene.
He checked out
1991, in bro.
7 inches.
1991, right?
91. Yeah.
So my question to you is, if he had this, and I know that it was repressed later on, and I don't know when, but I know they came out with another version of the Yellow Goat. I believe that he gave me the original version that came out, 1,000 copies of this. No,
maybe. Yeah.
That's an original one.
It looks like it because it has that sheet.
Because
you know what's
checked out
like they've created where you can't figure out what's real and what's not. You know.
Yeah, you could cash that in for a new car.
So let's.
I don't know what it's worth.
Yeah, let's circle back
to
Jerry.
I'm sure you're learning a lot today, Jerry, but you already knew about it too. probably should.
I got it, Roy. I got it.
That's a pretty thick one, brother.
Metal history, you know.
That's metal history, dude. Go buy a car with that.
knows a lot already, so I don't really have to show.
My collection was stolen too. I know about that.
I need money.
Yeah. I sold my high-end vinyl a few weeks ago. It sucked, but my debt is gone.
Yeah, I could do that too, actually.
Just to finish up on that subject right there, Omar gave me a bunch of records when he checked out of the scene. He gave me this. He gave me Sadist, the first album, Atheist, Piece of Time. I have it still.
Oh yeah.
No, my Sadist Illusions has a $1. My Sadist Illusions has a $1 price tag on it. The original one. Price tag. It says $1.
It says the battery is over $1,000 on Discogs.
Yeah, over 1,000. Yeah.
You better be out of debt, Necron.
I've had that. I've had that for years, and I've never played it. I just have it sitting there.
How about you, Jerry? You a fan of black metal at all? Or
I've not as much as the older I get, but when I was a teenager, I really loved this. I like the stuff that was more like kind of bridged on with death metal. Like I love Dissection. Right. Absolutely fucking love those first 2 Dissection records and the demos and all that. Loved Emperor and Bathory and all that shit. But I was always more into the death metal stuff. I liked the more groove kind of orientated stuff.
Same with me.
I would say, Jerry, you're more in the first wave than the second wave. Like
first wave for sure. Like Merciful Fate and all Venom and all that.
This dude will play Merciful Fate solos like record for record. He'll play.
Yeah, you definitely have. You have like something like something that I'd ever like. I mean, I saw you play with Ancient Death, and there was a lot of energies, you know. So I was like, whoa. Because like when we met, you know, like you saw, I came out to your show because I was like, yo, I want to feel this band's energies before we even worked together, basically.
Yeah.
And I did, you know, and I was like, damn, man, this is fucking the shit.
Yeah.
Your boy Rich was playing drums then.
I still have to witness it live.
Yeah, so
man. Yeah,
the energies that you like exude on guitar when you did the Atheist tour more recently, like you could fucking like you could feel the pictures, dude. Literally, like.
Oh hell yeah!
I want to throw that out there,
Jerry. Man.
Like, and not only you, but like other people I was talking to, just friends of mine. They're like, "Oh, I met your friend Jerry," and they're like, "Dude, he's really fucking." Like he must really be a huge fan of Atheist because he is like murdering it.
Well, the coolest thing about that whole tour, Roy, is the fact that Atheist played all those technical hard songs with no metronome, no backing tracks, no bullshit. It was just these 5 dudes. They learned the material at home. They fucking worked hard. They did a couple rehearsals and they just went. And how good it was when it hit. Like, well, I went to the Boston, of course. I'm going to, support fucking my brother, my bandmate, one of my best friends in the world right here. And how exact and amazing it was. With bands, like, usually they need some kind of assisted track or click, or the drummer needs a click to keep the fucking roller coaster from riding. These guys are just playing the shit. And it's amazing. I'm so fucking stoked for what they're doing.
Yeah,
I think it's also important to like mention too, like the fact that like so with Ancient Death, like we were talking about earlier, like we don't record the clicks or anything like that. Like we let the music breathe and however it feels in that moment. And so there's this genuine human quality to it that I feel like maybe some other music can sometimes lose out on with those kind of things. But it's like bands like Cynic and Atheist and all that stuff that kind of inspired us for that. It's just like, right, whatever, as long as you're in time with each other and there's a certain like kind of breathing quality to it almost,
right.
So
Which seems like it tightened up over the years, especially with like a lot of death metal albums, because the recordings got like tighter and more compressed kind of.
I feel like
it's nice to have that breathing quality.
Yeah.
It's been missing actually a little bit from.
Yeah, that was a big thing when we went into the studio. We had talked with our good friend Jamie, who recorded us and everything, and he was like, "Oh, no clicks," and we're like, "No," like we're like dead set on it, and I feel like it made our EP even just for our particular type of music that we play, it works well with what we're doing. And then
you're going to be playing in the Lower Than Dirt band?
Till the Dirt.
Till the Dirt.
So it's it's another project of Kelly's from Atheist, and he wrote all this music and recorded it during the pandemic, and then he had some of the old Atheist lineup, retrack and do parts for it. And I actually, it's kind of cool too, because I'm not on the record, but I'll be doing live guitars and the band forward.
Right.
But it features like Scott Burns came out of retirement. He hasn't done anything in 25 years to produce the record with Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
And like Steve DiGiorgio plays on the title track, and Jeff Loomis does a solo on it. So there's all these like kind of prominent names, and it's really cool. And like we were talking about earlier with being into other music like Alice in Chains and that kind of stuff, it's like a bridge of the metal stuff with kind of this grungy kind of alternative rock undertone almost. It's really incredible. It's different. And
I mean, if that's where the band's heart is going, that's where the band's heart is going.
Yeah. And it's cool too, like to see like Kelly, I mean, like Atheist stuff is so out of the box already, and to see him do that even more in a different way, it's really, really cool. And I'm really grateful to, playing two bands with the guy, legend. So
I heard the single, I think you guys got the single out there right now, right?
Yeah, we have the album came out yesterday actually, and there's 3 singles out, and then the album came out on Nuclear Blast, and so that's exciting. And so we're just released it to the masses and are seeing how it's doing.
And for Ancient Death right now, you guys are strapping down to do a new recording, basically. But a lot of people at this stage would probably expect you to be doing maybe like an album or a full-length album or something. But could you guys talk about, what you actually are doing?
Yeah, so I think you got disconnected earlier during this.
I did.
But yeah, we did the EP first, obviously, and that was like, usually bands do a demo or a single and kind of like build that up. And we felt really strongly about those 4 songs that we were like, okay, we're going to release it as an EP. Right. But now we're going into the realm of like, okay, well, we have more material, and, we could have done an album, but for proper lineage and just like the staying true to the old school mentality. And also like, we're still discovering our sound, like we don't have, like, we're in the very early stage of a band right now. And so, we're doing this 3-song demo that we're working on right now. And that split and like we're starting to finally gear towards more of a focused vision of what
it feels so good to hear you say what you just said, dude, because there's so many people that try to jump right demo to album, man.
Yeah.
You say you have to sit there and feel out your music before you decide to make an album, dude.
Yeah, and it's more important for us to like put out songs that feel strong in the way they are. Like someone had asked me a question of like, how come, you didn't release, Sacred Vessel in smaller releases or whatever. And we felt so strongly about those batch of songs together, and there was such a huge vision behind that, and we just trusted it. We trusted our guts and what our music was saying. So and that doesn't, and I feel like people also like write off things, like they'll be like, oh, it's not an album, like, so they'll skip out on the demos and the EPs, and sometimes that's some of the best music. It's like, to me, it doesn't matter about the length or anything.
Not on this show. Everyone loves the demo. I wanted to talk to you about this, Jerry.
Well, that's good too, because like I think what kind of like a lot what Jerry was saying is that it's gonna give like everyone like a real primitive raw version of us. We want to represent like that. Like,
well, your live sound is very like unique, so like it's good to, if you put out a demo that's and
then like it's gonna show our side of like our enthusiasm, like Demigod, and like
and there's also a little bit of rawness. There's a little bit of rawness, and just like because we're gonna be recording this demo ourselves, it's like it, and Jamie did phenomenal work on the EP, but for us, we're like, cool, we want to show some of the stuff that like maybe just a different side of us, and definitely like a different, you know, I don't know, a different energy, I guess, because, you know, it's losing out someone who was there with us during the whole process of recording. So, but for this, it feels right for these 3 songs, you know, in this stage. So
there was something I wanted to ask before the cover, The Sacred Vessel.
Oh, yes.
Talk to us a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So my father, Tim, actually did that painting. I actually have the painting on my wall right now. But he basically drew this, or, you know, painted this painting, and he was asked to, you know, he used to be a painter his whole life and was asked to draw what his depression feels like. And which for me, like all these songs off this EP deal with very personal topics, you know, every sort of emotion, honestly. And so when I saw this artwork, it was like, it was just so honest and genuine, and it's almost haunting a little bit. And so for me, I felt really strongly to have that connected to the music, because it felt like visually it was saying everything I was saying audio wise, you know, or like, you know, through the music. And so, you know, a lot of people had looked at it, you know, and at first and were like, nah, it's kind of like whatever. And it's like, but with the music, I felt really strongly about it. I was like, I don't care about having all these other same kind of trendy covers that everyone else is doing. I don't need to have the same artists or whatever. Right. It wasn't for the fact of trying to be different, but just what felt genuine.
It spoke to you because visually it spoke to you. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And it does kind of it has its own vibe to it. Me and Oscar spoke about this before we put this out. Your logo also has a huge vibe. With
because once you see the logo on there, you know what's up. Like, it's cool because you know, all right, this is death metal. You know, you know, it's the cover makes you think for a minute. Like, what's going on with these guys? Are they good?
Yeah. I mean, even the logo, like every portion of this band, like we haven't half-assed. Like everything is very deliberate and very honest and genuine. And even the logo, like our buddy Exy, who did some of, you know, my old band Garoted's artwork and stuff, he did this logo, and him and I went back and forth, and I was like, I don't like this version. This is like what I'm going for. Here's some sketch ideas that I have. And he came up with stuff, and we really tried to like tackle those themes, and, you know, because that logo also represents our music too, you know. And it's, you know, that's why there's all veins, because we're all connected, and we might not see them, but everyone's connected, and everything kind of influences everything else, you know.
It's all about space now. Definitely makes sense. It's hard to read the logo.
I will say our records have nothing to do with space. I will say all our music all deals with human emotions. That's our themes. There's, you know, and not a hit on other bands or anything.
Understandable.
Because I like that stuff too. But for our music, we want to talk about things that like really raise your awareness, and how, you know, can you break yourself from this chain of negativity? And if you're aware of that, perhaps you can allow happiness and positivity into your life.
No problem, brother.
Well, what's cool about it is he does it in a way of eeriness and depth.
It is eerie.
Like, it's not like,
even though it has bright colors on it, it has an eeriness to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a whole palette.
Reminds me of an old Giallo movie cover, like an old Giallo movie, like those Italian ones.
Yeah. Well, I definitely see the depression faces now that you mentioned that word, obviously, you know. But I see the concept now. Now that you just mentioned it, now, Jerry, you know, that you got a little bit more into the back story of the cover.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, see I see the creepiness now. You know that.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because I feel like a lot of people, when you first look at it, it might be like, oh, what the hell is that? But I feel like it kind of stands out on its own a little bit. Like when you look at it next to other things, like I've seen it put on certain lists or whatever, and with other albums, and it sticks out kind of like a sore thumb, which wasn't intentional. It was, I mean, it was
definitely a different cover.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was more of just like I said, like what represented our music, and
which is cool, because with the new release, we're hitting you with the fucking authentic fucking All right.
Yeah, going back.
Ancient Death is brutal as fuck too, motherfucker.
Yeah. So now yeah.
You know, like that cover is like essential death metal classic. That 7-inch, we're hitting you with "We Know What's Up" too. You know, we have our creativity and being ourselves, but we also know how to be authentic and be fucking, you know, true to like death metal. You know,
listen, just so everybody knows, we're gonna switch the live stream into like a different live thing. So I'm gonna send you guys each an invite, and then you come on to the other version of this, because I wanted this to just be just Ancient Death and just a more like serious discussion. And I think we kind of touched a lot of bases on, like, you know, the way you guys got into it, the forming of the band, the recording, you know, just a lot of different stuff that like probably no one knows about, you know, like the shows you guys played, the scene that you came up in, you know what I mean? Like, I think like it's important for other metalheads to just talk about that, you know what I mean? So I think, you know, Ancient Death is like kind of like, being that you guys are a little more like, I don't know, deep, I want to call it, like you have like a deeper meaning than just a regular like chuggy death metal band. And like it really shows with the live. So like I'm gonna represent some of that when we play the live death metal podcast. So anybody that is watching, we're gonna end the interview in a minute or two. Cool. And then I'm gonna go to a second YouTube on Death Metal Podcast, which is the live version of this. And then we're gonna play some stuff that's like unreleased by Putridarium. And then we're going to play some stuff that's from Ancient Death. And then basically that way, you know, you got to get a feel for like a little of everything. Like, again, I wanted to say, like, I'm trying to keep the interviews and the music separately, just because YouTube is so weirded out with the playing of the music stuff.
Yeah,
that, like, sure. Even if it's not copywritten now, years from now, it could mean something. They could take it down. I wanted this interview and this conversation with you guys and with Oscar to be evergreen for everybody. You know what I mean? Because I felt like it's important to know, like, you know what I mean? I don't even think we talked about Ray enough. You know what I mean? Like, I want to know, like, I want to know about, you know, more things about, like, you know what I'm saying? Just, I like to know about the bands, and we know each other, but it's good to also let the other fans out there know, like, what you guys are about, or what you're doing, or what's upcoming. You know what I mean? Because I think after you did put out your EP, you probably made an impression as like its own original like thing going on. You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of fans that are probably very like interested to see like what's up next. You know?
That's great. Oh man, I think I'm like so grateful for the success that we've had in such a short amount of time. And it has to do with everyone in this interview, you know, like Jerry's vision, like
definitely
Ray and Jerry are like the Glenn and KK, like for sure. They are a very gelled, well-oiled machine. They work together so fucking well. Like Ray's like the Kirk Hammett, and then Jerry's more like the Hetfield, but they both do 6 solos. So
they're both, they're both the Hanneman.
But it's really,
I always say that we're like
you're both the Hanneman, definitely.
Michael Denner and Hank Sherman, because they're both so similar, but they're so different.
Yeah,
and I can't it's an understatement.
You know what? You're very different for a necroharmonic band too, right? Obviously.
Yeah,
You look at the lineage of like what I put out, but there's I don't know. I guess something just like hit me. Like I was like, there's something, I don't know. There's something hitting me about.
It's interesting though, because we love all those bands, you know, all the necroharmonic bands, you know. So it's like it's really cool. Like it's like even if it doesn't, you know, show in our music necessarily, it definitely affected us as individual players and whatever, you know. So
me and Derek go back. I handed him that Les Schneider tape outside, remember?
Yeah, dude. You know, the funny thing is that I would have never thought that you would have wanted to release this band,
because it's different, right?
Because, well, you know, I mean, we come from a very like Rochefort demo, you know, crematory, you know, and I share that same taste.
Me and you.
And death metals, like shit. So when I brought this, but I knew it was good. That's why I wanted you to hear.
Well, for me and Oscar, because like we both had listened to it closely, and we were like, dude, there's something here that's very unique, and we want to be involved with it.
Yeah,
I remember that.
That's getting released soon. Like we're here to promote that release, split 7-inch and cassette. But like that was a very like old school song. Like that song is more old school than the 3, in my opinion.
A little bit.
On Vessel, it's a lot more like because we wrote it like it was written, but more on the fly. Like the song was written, but we just put it together so we could get it recorded. We knew we could do a good job of it, but it has like a lot of very just big old school like elements.
It's got a little bit of abhorrence, you know.
Abhorrence.
Yeah.
A little bit of like incantation, some crucifixion.
Disembowelment, more of
the Morbid Angel, like early Morbid Angel shit in there. Like it's a good song, and so I'm really happy that this happened the way. Hey, take care, Rich.
Hey, Rich. Yeah, tune in to the next episode, Rich, because I'm gonna end this stream and we're gonna do another death metal podcast, and then we're gonna play live music. Yeah. So I'm actually gonna say au revoir to everybody that is watching. Sorry, 48 people. I'm gonna have to make you shut this off. If you want to just check out, there's going to be like in less than 5 minutes, there's going to be another stream I have set up, and it's going to be the episode where we play some friggin' music basically, and we'll talk about things a little bit. All right, guys. So Ancient Death, definitely check out the release of Sacred Vessel if you haven't. Definitely check out all the band's Bandcamp if you want to check out the music. And then we'll talk more on the other thing. Okay, guys?
Absolutely, man.
Thanks for having us, bro.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yeah.
All right. I'll see you there. All right. I'll see you guys there, man. So this is Death Metal Podcast. We're going to be doing another episode right after this. And this is be like the music version of the episode, you know, like our regular ass death metal show or whatever. So I appreciate you guys. Just tune in another couple minutes. And then I'm just going to get up and stretch my legs out and get a drink. And then I'm going live. Or I'll just put it live and just put some music on. So I'll check you guys out. There's going to be another episode of Death Metal Podcast right after this. And somebody else sent me another doomy-ass band. Sent me a new rare thing, too. Which was a surprise. So we'll see. I'll see if it's playable on here. All right, guys. Check you out in like 2 minutes.